So, hey guys, Chauzu here. In this video, I will be focusing on versus Yamato, who has basically been the upcoming New Year legend that has been least talked about and hyped out because I guess versus Yamato is the most vanilla of the units. But we did get more info about Yamato's new damage reduction attack buff today, and that does make Yamato more interesting. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk about how viable Yamato is, how Yamato works, we'll look at some partners, and we'll end by looking at PvP. So yeah, changing to Yamato, level 150. So Yamato is a Dex Striker free spirit unit. Pretty nice to get new Dex units, and Dex free spirit are not the most common, I feel. Dex Striker are a bit more common, but yeah, always nice to get more options in general. So the captain ability, Striker and free spirit cards get 1.3 times HP, 5.75 times attack with matching orbs, 5.5 times otherwise, mixed tandem slots and matching slot effects. You have a slightly high chance of getting tandem orbs, and reduces the spear by 10 turns. So yeah, resisting the spear is obviously a nice bonus, but overall a pretty vanilla except for the spear. Highest attack multiplier in the game, but you need to remember that versus units don't have a super type or super class, so this still ends up being weaker than say 5.5 times with a super type or super class, but it does make using Yamato as captain more of a viable option. Just pair Yamato up with a super class or super type depending on the content basically. So yeah, really not much to say rather than that. It's solid. More to talk about with the special though. So right column get changed to tandem, left column get changed to Wano, and this is through block orbs, so that's nice. Striker and free spirit characters get a 3 times attack boost for 1 turn. If captain is striker or free spirit, you boost crew's attack based on the damage reduction effect applied on the crew. So yeah, 80% damage reduction becomes a 1.8 times extra attack boost. So we really didn't understand this before, but now we got a video on JP that showed it. And basically you get like an icon, kind of like the orb changing icon that like V1 Odin has, except it is damage reduction into attack. So what this means is that any damage reduction you have is just converted into an extra attack boost. And this also means that this damage reduction attack buff is stackable with every other buff. And if you know how damage in Super Sugo works, like additional stackable attack buffs are incredibly valuable. So yeah, this is just a free up to 1.95 times extra attack boost if you can get the 95% damage reduction, which is the biggest damage reduction. I don't think they'll count damage nullification based on the wording. And basically if you use a second Yamato versus Yamato special, since that's the only way you can get this damage reduction attack boost, you get a 2.75 times attack boost for striker and free spirit, and an 80% damage reduction. So basically the way it's supposed to work is you use one versus Yamato, get an attack boost, set up the damage reduction attack buff, but you don't have any damage reduction yet. Then use the second Yamato, you get a big ore boost, and you get a big damage reduction. So now the damage reduction also does damage. I feel it's important to note with the versus effect that you don't have to use 2 versus Yamato. You can use Yamato's versus special to get a 60% damage reduction for 2 turns. So that's not the biggest buff, but it means that you always have the means to get a free damage reduction and 1.6 times extra damage. The versus special also makes tandem slots have matching slot effects for 2 turns, and changes tandem's attack multiplier to 2.25 times. See, I feel like if we talk like high damage, like turning tandem into matching can be nice, since most optimal damage team will want super tandem, and now super tandem users do a bit extra damage as well, which is nice. And obviously it's not just about making tandem morphs do more damage, you also get the damage reduction attack buff from Yamato that nobody else can do and stacks with everything, so Yamato might see more use. Another thing that's nice with Yamato, if we're going to talk super boss and such, is that Yamato has like the best 2 classes for super boss in general. Like, you can go the striker route and try and pair up with Super Tandem Kaido, or you can go the free spirit route and try and pair up with like Super Tandem Luffy, stuff like that. Sailors boost best attack by 100 and makes 3 orbs matching. That's very nice, of course. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to try and use Yamato. Like, the kit is pretty bland, it's not the most exciting, but it will probably be pretty strong and pretty fun to try and get that damage reduction, either through the versus effect or having some other unit, which is more preferable, I think. Getting the versus effect can be a bit hard, since you need to consume 10 Wano tandem orbs quite a lot, and sure, Yamato makes it more likely to get them, but it's still just a small boost, so yeah, you're not going to speedrun and get 10 tandem or Wano orbs normally, basically. Let's look at the super tandem as well, I guess. Only for final battle, and you need a Mugi, or you need Ace, or Momo. And needing 2 of them is a shame. Honestly, if this was just one, Yamato would be a lot better. But at the same time, if we're talking like super boss, most comps I can see using Yamato doesn't want to use Yamato super tandem anyway, so it's really not a big deal. But 2.25 times tandem attack boost to striker and free spirit, and 1.3 times increased damage taken through full immunity. So I don't know why it's such a low through full immunity effect. That should be at least 1.5 times increased damage taken. I'd even say it should be 1.75 times, but that's just me. So I don't know why they made it so weak, but it is what it is. In general, the super tandem and final tap for Kaido vs Yamato is surprisingly weak for both of them. Anyway, let's look at some units to pair Yamato with. I picked quite a few this time, since there's a lot of things to consider. This is more for like general content, good units to pair up with. So one good one is Sabo and Ace, since of course Yamato versus Yamato resists the spear, and they do too. So for some reason it messed up in my head. This is not as good combo then when I think about it in terms of resisting, but at least you resist special binds, so that's 2 stuff you resist. And like, both Ace and Sabo don't resist the spear, so if you sit on Sabo here, you resist special bind, while Yamato resisted the spear. And one thing that actually has good synergy though is that Sabo and Ace can give the ore boost to free spirit, so Yamato can complement that with an attack boost, and of course you can use the swap to get color affinity. So yeah, some decent synergy, but not 100%, I guess. We have Uta as well. So Yamato resists the spear, Uta resists paralysis special reverse, so a lot going for it already. And special wise, not as good synergy, since Uta handles the attack and Ore Boost, which versus Yamato does too, but you can try and get the extra damage from the damage reduction attack buff. I just put Koala here as well, another unit that can resist special reverse and could be a good option if you want to go a more mono dex route with versus Yamato. And yeah, Koala does different buffs as well, doing color affinity buffs in special, so could work out pretty nicely. You can hybrid up with OG Yamato, and you have another special to give you Wano orbs. You have increased damage taken, you have the chain buffs, and you also resist bind, so of course being able to resist both bind and despair is incredibly good. And finally Kid, who doesn't really resist anything, but he does have the -3 CDs. It can be a good option if you just want to try and speedrun a bit. Kid also has an easy way to get tandem orbs and lock them for a long time, so you can use him to more easily get the versus gauge filled. And yeah, you can get an orb boost for him. He's mainly on attack boosted, but you can get a 2.5 times orb boost, which can complement the attack boost from versus Yamato. Finally, we have some potential for Super Boss Kizuna and such. We can start with Kaido. Obviously, if you run Kaido with versus Yamato, Kaido needs to be Frank Captain, but that's obviously doable. And yeah, if you do run versus Kaido or Super Tandem Kaido, you obviously want Kaido's tandem attack boost instead, I'd say. Also just easier to build for in general. And Kaido also does an ore boost, and Yamato complements that nicely with a damage reduction attack boost. And her own Yamato's own attack boost as well, of course. You can also have Sasaki on the team for Super Boss if you run Kaido. And sure, Sasaki does an attack boost like Yamato, but you can just use Yamato first and ignore this verse attack boost. But what is interesting here though is that you get a 90% damage reduction. So yeah, versus Yamato's damage reduction attack buff is now 1.9 times. And you also can get some base attack boost from Sasaki's special. So that's a cool option to consider. Another very cool unit to pair with versus Yamato, which you might not normally consider for stuff like Super Boss or such, is actually Legend Hina. Pretty surprising, but yeah. But yeah, basically, Hina can get delay through full immunity. It involves stalling a turn, so might not always be possible, but it could be possible depending on how the Super Boss is designed. But if you look at the special, you can get an ore boost for Quick and Striker, which could work with versus Yamato for sure, doing an attack buff. And you also do an 80% damage reduction, so you can get a pretty good damage reduction attack buff as well. And if you do get the delay through Hina's Captain ability, you can use her super type to get a 2 times delay. And if we're talking about like Hina Captain with Yamato, you can run like Robin, the new Robin, together with Hina. And Robin can be a sub. She can also give a death down conditional. She's also a quick cerebral, so you got something going there. Could even run Hina with Robin as captain, so you got super type quick, super class cerebral, and yeah, it's a pretty interesting idea. We'll see if that's ever possible to do. Oden, this might be the best pair up, I'd say, for versus Yamato in Super Boss Kizuna. Like Oden in general is very good for Super Boss Kizuna. But basically Oden also does an attack boost with his special. So you'd want to aim for the color affinity buff Oden can do, which is 2.5 times color affinity, which is very high. But the main thing with Oden here is that if you manage to get your HP below 50%, you get a 95% damage reduction. So basically, optimally, we have Odin here with a superclass slasher, which is a shame, since that doesn't really help Yamato, but it depends on like what the super boss is and such. You can still maybe fit versus Yamato. But you can get the chain multiply boost from Odin superclass. You have 3 times attack from Yamato. You have 2.5 times color affinity from Odin. Or it's going to be a bit lower, I guess, since low HP. So 2.25 times color affinity from Odin. 95% damage reduction, so that's a 1.95 times damage reduction attack boost. So yeah, it has some potential at least. Pretty interesting. Finally, we have Nami, and of course Nami as captain gives a lot more Wano orbs. So you can pair that up with versus Yamato to fill the versus gauge easier, and yeah, it's just a natural fit in terms of classes and such to be able to run Nami. I don't really think much more about that combination, but yeah, I felt like mentioning that Nami pairs up well with versus Yamato. Anyway, let's return to the screen and take a look at versus Yamato in PvP before we end the video. Might be the best new unit for PvP, I'd say, which is impressive since Yamato is Dex, and Dex is very good already. As we see here with ability, attack up level 6 to Dex, def up level 5, and in the beginning of the battle, special CT speed down level 3 and def down level 5 to quick. So very good, you both buff the offenses and defenses of Dex and really hinder quick with the special CT down. You can also do more damage with the def down. So if there's one thing that Dex lacked a bit, it could be the offense. So Yamato helping with both offense and defense is very nice. Special. Attack up level 7, speed up level 7. You also hit enemies in a large range for 2.5 times attack. And all quick units are hit for 2.5 times attack and 70% chance of paralysis. So basically, if you face a mono quick team, which you should do if you use Dex, you basically have 2 hits of 2.5 times damage against basically all enemies since it's a large range. So that's pretty good, of course. CT is a bit high. So I think it needs some testing, but I think Yamato is pretty viable. At least if you run a more offensive team for Dex to do more damage. GP stuff. Don't think Yamato is very good in GP, to be honest. Dex types get like HP, but the other buffs are pretty bad. In types get some more stuff, but not that much either. And free spirit, sure, attack, HP, CT speed up, but I feel like the numbers you get are pretty low and there's not a lot of synergy in the stuff you get. It feels like randomly thrown around. So not impressed by leader skill, and burst is not impressive either. Need to defeat 10 enemies, so that's very unreliable to say the least. You're not likely to be able to use this twice, at least not for good value. And then it targets 3 high def enemies for 4,500 damage, which is pretty nice. And you target quick type enemies for 1% chance of half stats. So yeah, we talked about this before, but color specific stuff, not very good in GP, especially when it gets harder since you don't even fully know what you face. And in general, strength, dex, quick teams, strength and quick in particular, are not very good in grand parties. You won't really see them a lot. So yeah, don't use Yamato as leader in GP, but pretty good in Pyro Rumble otherwise. And yeah, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.